Dooby 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 doo. Dooby 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 doo. Dooby 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 doo. Oh, that sounds okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, we're up and live. Back with some Rust, SFML, specs, an ECS system, and we're doing collisions. We're doing some physics. Yeah, physics collisions. Will the ball hit the bat? What have we got so far? We've got a program that does that. Amazing, huh? It bounces a ball around a screen. We also have movement on the keyboard, as I'm looking at it right now and thinking, did I do it right? So I have cleaned the code up a little bit since our last session after trying to make a mess, and I did discover that I could use the entity for looking at its own components. That's going to be interesting in the future. So I've been doing a little bit of work in the background, not a lot. The code's up on GitHub if you want it. Description is on the YouTube. The link is on the YouTube. It's in the description for the playlist, and it's also on the very first. It's in the notes for the very first of the videos. So it's all there. It's all there. It's all done. Amazing, isn't it? Some interesting background things I was looking at with this as well. But anyway, it all works. It works fine. So anybody who's eagle-eyed may notice that this keyboard input is not using the operating system events. It's using something out of SFML, is pressed. So a key, you can actually check if a key is pressed, not whether it is being pressed this frame or being released this frame, but if it is actually pressed down. So if the current condition of the key is pressed down, then if it's the left key, that becomes 1. So you get 1 plus, there's a little times 2 here for the second key. If this one's also pressed down, this would equal 2. You get 3. Becomes stationary. So if you press both keys down, you get stationary. If you're pressing one or the other, you're getting 1 or 2. Notice the or. And for 1, we go left, and for 2, we go right. A very simple piece of what we call Boolean logic being used. What that is doing is if. So 1, match state 1, really says if key left is pressed, move direction is left. If the right key is pressed, then we move right. But if I use if statements, left can be pressed, right can be pressed, and yeah. What's going to happen here? So this is a cleaner approach, and it gets rid of 2 if statements, which are branches, which mess up your CPU. We only have 1 branch now instead of 2. But then I went and made a mistake. So if you look back in input, default response to user input called keyboard events. keyboard events. Yeah, look where I put it. Can you spot the problem? I didn't till this morning. I was actually thinking about it last night, about the keyboard events and how I could make it even smoother, about using acceleration and deceleration on the bat and putting the physics in for that. I'm not going to do that because it's not needed for this, but I was thinking about it. That coffee was nice. I'll put that there. So, what's the problem with what I've written? Let's boil it down and see if I can show you the problem. So, while let some event happen, or come in from the operating system, that's what polling means. It's non-blocking, so it's going to whiz through this loop, this while loop, quite a lot of times, especially if you move the mouse. I'll come back to that. So we're going through this loop quite a lot of times, and every time we go through the loop, we're only checking for key pressed escape. That's how you do the event version of this. So if the escape key's been pressed, there'll be an event for it. We'll obviously, by looping through here, find it eventually, and we'll just return false to close the application down. But every time we go through this loop, if it isn't an event closed or a key press for the escape key, if that isn't happening, we're running keyboard events over and over and over again. Although this code looks correct and works correctly, we're running keyboard events an awful lot. Every frame. Yeah, every single frame we are running keyboard events upwards of maybe 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. It depends on how many events the operating system's got for us. If you're moving the mouse, it's got an awful lot. Because every time you move the mouse, an event is created. If you move the window, lots and lots of events are created. We already removed resizing the window. It's one of the reasons I wanted to. Just keep this a bit shorter. But people don't realise that this polling empties the event queue. And how many events are we emptying? Yeah. And when making games, the one thing you don't really want to happen, I can show you it happening quite easily. I'll do that in a second. When it happens, you can jam your game into unpredictable behavior, as I'm about to show you. Is it a problem? In this instance, not really. Because we're not in an advanced game or anything. We're in something very, very simple. It's taking less than 2 milliseconds to get through the main loop. But I can force it to go further than that. I can force it, because of this loop, to take a second, 2 seconds to get through that main loop. Let's see what happens. So notice how the ball's moving. It's moving nice and smoothly. It's getting through that lovely poly vent quite nicely. If I move this around, oops, move that back, please. It does. The mouse isn't seem. It is actually. It's just I can barely tell that it's happening. But yeah, the mouse is affecting it. That's okay. It's hard to tell at this stage because we haven't got enough graphics for it to really show up. So let's jam the poly vents. Now we can do that quite easily. I'm going to have the ball going towards the centre there. Okay. Look what happens when you're moving the window. Oh, the ball's disappeared when I release it. Whilst I'm moving the window, it's running this event loop. Oh, look, the ball's back. Where did that come from? Look at it jump. Oh, now look what's happened. The ball's got stuck in the on the window edge. So undefined behaviour. And now it's disappeared. Can we get it back? Oh yeah, there it is. It's at the bottom. Yeah, just by moving the window. As soon as we start to move the window, it locks into this. That causes our delta time to increase. That causes all of our calculations to suddenly go a bit wild and causes this very, very strange behaviour. One of the problems is, whilst we're doing that, it's running this keyboard events like crazy, but I'm only using the mouse, I wasn't even touching the keyboard. There aren't any events. It didn't even need to run this. So we're wasting a lot of our CPU, well, a minuscule bit of our CPU on this keyboard events for no reason whatsoever. Interesting. Let's fix it. That's what it should say. The default response is ignore other events. Remember, our keyboard doesn't rely on the events. So we don't need it in that while loop at all. We only need to run it once. Every time it comes through here, we just need to run it once. There you go. And that's how you do it. Take it outside of the while loop. We've just saved our CPU an awful lot of hassle. Yeah, it's not even going to register on my machine. On the level that this program is running, which is minimal runtime, we're not even going to see that. If you've got a 3D application that's drawing thousands of triangles onto the screen to make up models, however, yeah, you're going to think, oh, my FPS is going down. Why is that? And it's probably got nothing to do with your renderer. It might have a hell of a lot to do with your input. So be careful. That's a logical programming mistake. This while loop, I did get outside the while loop, didn't I? No, I didn't. Jesus. Still done it wrong. Get outside of the while loop, will you? Thank you. So make sure when you're doing input, that you're not messing about inside of a while loop. This will now speed through all of the events and empty the queue, the poly events, very, very, very quickly. You want as little in here as you can place. You don't want a massive amount of events being detected here, if you can help it. Because this is a loop. Loops are dangerous. Loops are very dangerous to game programming. Be aware of them. If statements are also very dangerous, so do try and use Boolean logic instead of if statements. So this is Boolean logic. Basically how Boolean logic works is that returns a bool. It's either 0 or 1. If we turn it into an integer, 0 or 1, instead of a bool, we can then use it. We can add them up. We can then just do one branching, and that works. It's an interesting solution to if statements, which I don't like, because branching on, yeah, how can I put it? Your program is going to branch no matter what into different pathways of code execution, depending on the choices that you want the program to make. But you can minimize that by putting in Boolean logic. That was an interesting cock-up that I made. And I'm going to hold my hand up and say, sorry about that. Again, it's one of those things you're going to see in examples online, or if you ask ChatGPT about how to, like SFML, how to control a keyboard, how to get keyboard events and things like that. You're going to see a big long list in here. Probably. You're not going to see this. Well done, people. Systems. Oh yes, entities. Yeah, how to access a component from entity. So if we've got a player entity, we can use a get entity. On one of these red storages, but we still have to read the storages, which is just a table of pointers basically to memory. I've already worked that out. But because of the way that the specs ECS system works, I don't really think I can get past that line there. I was trying to, but I wanted to get rid of that line, but it still involves having to fetch all of this stuff down before we can get the component that we want. But it is an option. It is an option. Why is this doing this? Strange. Okay, that's better. So I was looking into that. Collisions. We're on to collisions today, aren't we? I'm going to leave this in, actually. Yeah, we'll leave that in. We're not going to be doing entities. We're looking at collisions. So, yeah, there is still a big elephant in the room under systems. And that is, yeah, I'm getting all my storage now in one place instead of doing it inside of all of the systems. So we're only doing this once instead of every single system that we write. I think that's probably a less CPU intensive way of doing it. But then we're having to pass these things through. Makes a bit of a mess of your signatures, doesn't it? Yeah. We're actually using specs the wrong way. I'm doing it the way I think rather than the way specs tells you to do it. So what I'm doing isn't wrong, but it's not right either. What they do is they use systems as structures. I'm using systems as functions instead. So you're getting in this mess of passing, if you want to pass rectangles through, when you define the type, you're getting all of this garbage. Yeah, well... And this is why I was looking at entities, because to pass an entity through is easier, and then we could just put entity, get the right component type of thing. But then you're still gathering your data within the system function, which I'm not overly keen on. But that's okay. It'll do for now, because we've got this little arrow thing where I can just get rid of it. So be aware of that. It looks a bit weird, but it's correct. It is correct, but it just looks awful. Because we're ignoring the way things are supposed to be done. According to the authors of the library, we're doing it our own way. Right, so today we want to write... Oh, you might have noticed I've also put in a bat and ball. So new modules, bat, ball and bat. So I've now got bat control bat, ball detect window border. And we can look at those as well. So we're looking at a new system, aren't we? So let's have a look at that. Ball. Can we just get rid of all that garbage, please? Why has this done this? What is this? What are you doing? Jesus. So as we can see, the bat and the ball have got all this garbage in. We'll get rid of that so we can actually see the code. And what I would like to do is the ball versus bat collision detection. Now that's going to be interesting. What do we think? How can we do this? Well, this is a clue I've got a to-do up here. This is what we're doing here. Decided it's going to go in ball because it's the ball that we're going to be looking at as the object for collision. So we're going to need a function of some kind. We can do that. I'll put it below actually. So it'd be a public function. Yeah, we're into code already, wow. We're going to have ball, bat, collision. I've already written the collision detection stuff. We are going to be pulling in quite a lot of garbage, aren't we? Yeah. Are we going to be returning anything? I don't think so. Well, not yet anyway. It's going to use this pattern. Oh. That's awkward. Does it matter? Hold the phone. I need mutatability if I'm going to... No, I don't. I only need mutatability on the... Ah. It's only the velocity I really care about. Do I need the app? You see, this one just starts off with the ball. There's no app here. This one actually has the app in it. Move direction. Don't really need move direction. That's what it's being used for. Again, if statements removed using Boolean logic. That's what that is there. I need the rectangle I need the velocity. I need the name so that we can decide which one's the bat and which one's the ball. Okay. Why would I need the app? It's got the window, we don't need that. It's got the world, we shouldn't need that. Delta time. Don't need that. Is running, don't need that. We don't need to know the bat movement direction. Alright. So let's set that up. I'll take a copy of you lot. Because I'm not writing that out again. Don't you just love it? Yeah. That gives us names, rectangles, and velocities, and ball object string. We actually don't need that. We can do that slightly differently, I think, for this. I think I can get away with that. Names, rectangles, and velocities. Okay. Get rid of that because I don't really want to see it. So we would be using this names, rectangles, and velocities. Yeah. Okay. I want to try something slightly different here. I want to create an axis-aligned bounding box for the ball and the bat. So what I'm thinking is using some variables. So we'd have which one's going to come first? Doesn't really matter. Like a ball. AA, BB. There we go, we do have one. Can we just put new? I'm not sure what I put on it. Yeah, we can. Oh, it does give us the position. Alright, I didn't realise I put that in. So this is in the library. let's have a quick look at it before I use it. So I've got a new function. I've also got a detect collision. Very, very simple detect collision, which gives back a bool. That new is awkward. Do we need it? Can I just do this without? Oh, I see what I've done. I put my variables in the wrong place, that's what I've done. Yeah. I'm just going to do that for a sec. Because here we've got this horrible thing. Set up the bounding boxes. It's going to be an if statement. It's going to be name is equal to from, no, it's string, isn't it? We're going to have ball. And all we're going to do then is take the ball AAB, and make that equal to an AA bounding box. And now we can put that in, because now we have the rectangle. So it's going to be rect rectangle left position Y is going to be rectangle top. Okay. The width rectangle width. Yeah. Thank you. And height is going to be rectangle height. That's a semicolon. Those are F-32s, aren't they? Huh. So I didn't get this right. Okay. Alright, that's okay now. It doesn't like this. Immutable. Okay. We should stop putting these pop-up boxes in the way. Ba, 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 ba. Alright, we can do that. That's better. So it's allowing us to do that because there's some... Oh, it's shadowing. Is it going to die? Oh, no. What's its lifetime? This is awkward. We're going to find out. I think we've got a problem here. Because really, this is coding. This is going to look awful. It's not programming. We're repeating the same thing twice. Now you're probably wondering, why did I want these outside? It's because of lifetimes. Now we've got this silly problem that we've got this if statement stuff. Okay, just bear with me. We need to work out the logic on how this is going to work. So that would get me some bounding boxes. You can tell I'm not liking this already. I don't want to be in this for loop. The problem is, I don't actually want to be in the for loop. I want to be back outside of it. Here. So here we would check for the collision between those two. I'm just going to put check collision, which is, it would be ball AAB detect collision, and the target would be bat AABB. Expected an AA bounding box, found an AA bounding box. So, oh, I expected the AND sign. Expected a pointer. And that would be a Boolean value. So it's either true or it's false. This is awful, as you're about to see. We're still in a for loop there. Is there a better way of doing this? We'd need to take this velocity out. But it has a lifetime. Oh, no. This is absolutely awful. Mind you, when I'm coding, not programming, but coding, this is what happens. We get these awful logical problems which don't really make sense. You see, we need to know the ball's velocity as well. It's actually a component velocity. Yeah. Would equal C velocity. Again, default. We have to set it to something. This is not gonna work. So under the ball, we would need to also pull out the velocity. We can see all of the problems happening in front of us. That's going to be velocity. That should go. No, you can't do that. I know I can't. Okay. So we've got that matching up. We've got mutatable, mutatable. Rectangles mutatable. Why? Why do we want the rectangles mutatable? Do we? Does it matter? At this point, no, it's going to complain. It's not complaining. Interesting. Yeah. So if we get a result, just going to type it in and it's all wrong. Don't mind. If we get a result, then we want to take the balls. Just do something very simple. C velocity of y, and we're just going to multiply that by -1. Cannot assign to ball C velocity which is behind an AND reference. Yes, we can. Alright, make it mutable. Alright, everything matches up. It's saying that nothing's a problem. It is. I can see masses of problems. This is awkward. But the theory's correct. You set up your bounding boxes, you check for collisions. So reverse the ball movement if we collide. So the collision detection is quite simple. You decide, well, you set a variable up, obviously, for the collision. You then have a look whether the width, well, the width of the object is greater than the target's x. So self x plus width is greater than the target's width. Oh, sorry, the target's x position. Then we look to make sure that to see if the our x position is less than or equal to the target's x plus its width. I should draw this really, shouldn't I? Then we do the same for the y's, basically. And if all of those are true, then your object is inside or has encroached inside the target and a collision has occurred. So if all of that is true, then the collision is true. Otherwise it remains false, so just return the collision as false. Very, very simple collision detection. It's not brilliant, but it works, or should work. gives rise to a piece of code which I really don't like. So if that happens, we can just pump that through, I think. Under systems. So let's put it through here. Where would we want it? I'm going to pop it here for now. Because it's the ball stuff. Ball. Ball back collision detection. So we'll want names. Names, rectangles and velocities. Sounds good. Okay. So I've added it in. What's it gonna do? What is it gonna do? Try Starbat. Why? This creates an owned instance just for comparison. Why dereference it? Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either, mate. Let's mess around with this a little bit before we... Yeah, I thought so. Deref for ourselves, yeah. What is this? This is a string. Because we can't place that in, can we? We can. Really? I think Clippy might be guiding us slightly wrong there, yeah. I thought you'd need to compare a string with a string. That isn't. That's an str. That's a string. We're allowed to do that comparison? Really? Huh. It doesn't look proper. But it works. What happens if we miss it? Yeah, it works on back as well. We've done it. This code needs to be changed. But that's your logical steps done. Huh. We have a game. Why isn't it smooth? What's going on with my computer to not make it smooth? The controls. Yeah, they're okay. Yeah, it works okay. I want to be able to move this window around. Yeah. Okay. So that's the logic behind using our AA bounding boxes from our library. Huh. That's going to need some thought, isn't it? What happens to our defaults? They get overwritten. Okay. I'm really not sure about what the hell's happening to this memory. Shadowing. Might need to. I'll need to look that up. But we are able to pull that velocity out. Seems a bit weird that it's letting me do this. Okay, we'll let it do it then. This code will change. I have no doubt about it. I'm just wondering. I can't do the check collision or the reverse of the movement within that for loop, because we don't have both pieces of information available at the same time. And we need the ball AAB and bat AAB, so we need both of these pieces of information before we can do a detection. I've got a horrible feeling that's the only way I can think of doing it. Well, that gives you a complete game. Done. Right, next project. No, joking. This code base is going to be looking better if I can do it differently. I could set up bounding boxes first, but that would be dangerous. Is it worth thinking about having the component be the bounding box? No. Could we hold a bounding box within the components? Yes. We still have the problem of having to pull them both out. so that we can use them at the same time. This is the problem with having a for loop like this to iterate through. This is why I wanted to use the entities, isn't it? Because then we could just grab them straight from without the iteration, without the for loop. I can get rid of the for loop, but we'd have to use the entity values instead of the iteration. That means storing the entity values somewhere. Probably in the app. The other way of doing it is tags, component tags, which I don't like. Making an empty component saying ball, or an empty component named ball, and an empty component named a bat. Components are for storing data in, so making these tag components is just bloating your components. It's not really doing anything useful. Can we solve moving the window? We can. Do I have a good solution? No. If the window is in motion, then the game should be paused, is the answer. So that the ball doesn't whiz off the screen or go and jump into another object. So what we do is we drop that frame. Drop all of those calculations and drop that frame so that we don't use it after we stop moving the window. Because it's when you stop moving the window that your delta time's all screwed up. Now that's easy enough to do. Let's fix that whilst I'm thinking about this ball stuff. It would be under application. So really, do we need to stop rendering? Well, we don't really need to render. So large delta times mess everything up. So self dot, we're putting an if statement in, delta time is less than or equal to 0.2. Yeah, that'd be fine. So we'll only update our application if the delta time is low enough. Now, I know for a fact that this is taking less than a millisecond. Not 0.2 might be too high. How many have we got? 1,000? How many milliseconds have we got? 100? 1,000. That's a 0. Let's try that. So we can't see any difference. But if we start messing around with that, now the ball stops and then just carries on from where it was. It doesn't fly away. Because by doing this, that delta time there goes above 0.02, which is 20 milliseconds. And it ignores it. It just drops the frame. It won't execute your update or your render. It just drops it and gets on with the next cycle. And if the delta time is still too high, it'll get on with the next cycle, pulling your delta time down, back to normal. It is as simple as that. That's how you get rid of your screen movement problems. Oh, that didn't look good. Did you see how it crawled along? Got stuck inside. There's that problem as well. Let's just say our collision detection system isn't really that good. There you go, went straight through. Nice. At least now we can drop a frame if it's getting a bit out of control. So hitting the sides of the paddle is a problem. There it is. Isn't that lovely? So if you hit the sides of the paddle, it's just going to hug your paddle. So it doesn't know which direction the collision is coming in from. Oh, even at certain angles. Oh, that's bad. Right, that means we need to do an adjustment on the collision. We can't just reverse the velocity. But we have the game working. And for some reason, it's stuttering. Now it stopped stuttering. That's Windows. That's the events on Windows. Interesting. So there's that to get rid of as well. Operating system interaction with your game. You want to close that down. So how easy is game programming? Bloody hard. I love that. I think we'll keep that in as a feature. It's not a bug. Because it isn't a bug. Well, that's what we've told it to do. But you can now see the problems with physics detection. It's not... The hard part isn't detecting the fact there's a collision. It's what you do about it. It's how you resolve your collisions. That's the difficult part. What we need to do is when we hit there, or we get, well, we collide, we need to move the ball back to where the collision happened. We're only detecting whether that box is inside that bat. We never move it back outside the bat to be able to continue its movement. That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. I think we've got something that's really cool there. And now we've got rid of that stupid thing, but we've got another if statement. I needed to get rid of that one though. That's what that does. It stops weird behaviour if we poly vents for too long. i.e., move the window. Alright, I'm okay with all of that. I'm not okay with the code base, but it's good enough. Alright. The code for Dusk is already on GitHub with that AABB stuff in it. So that's your first completed collision detection system. It's not the best. It needs a lot more thought put into it. But that thought is beyond what I'm trying to do here. If you're going to design your own physics, that's a project in itself. Creating a library is not altogether easy. First complete collision. Yeah, that'll do actually. Plus frame dropping for unexpected delta times. Yeah, I'll put that in as well. Because all we're doing is we're dropping the frame, we just don't do it. We just say, no way, I'm not doing that delta time. And it's such an easy thing to do, but you're not going to see that in samples. Yeah, okay. There you go, there's the code. So what have we actually got here? Wow, that took 1 hour and 20 minutes to complete the game. Wow. That wasn't bad. Code's up on GitHub, you can have it. You can do what you want with it. What have we actually got? We have really made a game engine, haven't we? With some very, very basic code. And we even have the start of a physics system in a library. What you could do is take this and make it into a more interesting game. So this code, if you do decide to do some development on collisions, could become the basis for any game that you think of. 2D, that is. Let me explain. What we have here is the possibilities of a platformer, just using different graphics, obviously. You have breakout, obviously. That's if you put some bricks up here, we can detect collisions. So if we've got bricks up here, we can hit the bricks and explode them, or whatever you want to do with them. You've got the top-down scroller, where this would be a spaceship firing out stuff, and this would be a target. You've got all of those games, all those arcade games, using the same code. Control system needs smoothing out because of that stoppage thing when you press both buttons. You can use accelerations for that. I think what I would like to do is think about, I might do collisions next. It gets a bit deep though. The only thing I am unhappy about, and I mean unhappy about, is an ECS necessary? No, not for this kind of thing. Why did I use an ECS? Because I had never really programmed it this way before. ECS is not the best solution for all programs. It does keep me data quite nicely out of the way. I'll agree with that. I will agree with that. But is it really what I'm after? Those decisions have to be made. This has to be sorted out. I like the idea. We wouldn't get less code with just remove two else statements and a for loop. If we turn this into entities grabbing things, we could functionalize this bounding box thing that would probably be the first thing to do, because that's duplication of code. That's a function. As soon as you see that, it's a function. It's obvious. I don't know if we're allowed to do it. So you would have a function create AABB. It would take in something. A rectangle. Yeah. We only need a reference to it, don't we? So we can name it the same thing, rectangle. That would be a reference to C rectangle. That's all we need. Okay. And we would return an AA bounding box. Yeah. That looks okay. So we would put in an AA bounding box, new. Yeah, we just take that out. Take that off the end, because it's a return value. There we go. Yeah. Can we do that? Are we allowed to do that? Let's find out. Create with a rectangle. Huh. That looks okay, but have we caused a problem? That's an and mute rectangle. We have caused a problem. Doesn't matter. For now. Yeah, convert. Convert the identifier to snake case. Create AABB. Ah, okay. We'll do that. Alright. Yeah, it works. Done. Okay, that makes our code more manageable there. So that's exactly the same, isn't it? Yeah. How's this looking? No, it's not looking too bad. So we've got the duplication. We got rid of that. That's a start. All this stuff at the top's awful. I'm actually a little more happier with that, but it's these if statements. We're in a for next loop. I can't get rid of two if statements and make it into one. Huh. Well, well, well. It looks a bit better. Don't really need that there. Still readable if I don't have that there. The only reason I use spacing like this is for readability. And second thoughts. We'll leave it in there. What I would do if I was to develop this more is remove this from here and put it under entities. Don't think this belongs. This doesn't belong here. It's got nothing to do with the ball. That's the first thing. That goes somewhere else. 7 results on to-dos. Can we really finish it on that? Replaces running with an expandable with an expandable state machine. Well, that's an obvious one. Read data in from an external file. That enum thing belongs with the first one. Gather data using a query system. That would be a good idea. Update physics collisions. We've done that one. Just done it. We haven't got resolution. We don't resolve them. Use the dusklib to detect collisions. Well, we've satisfied that one. So I'll remove it. Alright. Bat versus ball collision detection. We've done that one. Not brilliantly, but we've done it. We're down to 4 to-dos. Interestingly. So if I was to continue this project, we've got 4 to-dos which really should be done if you want to make this into a full system. Read data in from an external file, that could be interesting. I'm going to leave those in. Is that a good enough system? It is, but that create AABB is totally in the wrong place. Where would we put it? Where would we put it? It doesn't belong in ball. Doesn't belong in components. Components is data only. Entities controls entities. Systems. It could go in systems, but it isn't a system. It's got nothing to do with input. It does have something to do with ECS. It's data handling, isn't it? But it's really collision detection. It's part of a collision detection. AABB is axis aligned bounding box used for collisions. Just happens to be the same as this C rectangle thing that this component rectangle just happens to have the same statistics in this case. That's not always true. It's just a coincidence that we're using a very basic version of it. What do we have in ECS? Registering components. It's part of a library API. It's part of Dusk API. And it's the first time I've ever used the library, so I've really got nowhere to put it. That in itself is an interesting side effect of trying to use it. We do have a window API here. So we could have a Dusk API. That would probably... don't like it. You can see that I don't like it. I mean, a window API is obvious. But a Dusk API? What happens if I want to throw it away? Just remove the file. It would make more sense. Is it really what I want, though? Well, yeah. I think for now it's probably going to be an okay solution. Because I can't see it being part of anything else. Systems do systems, entities do entities. This isn't an entity. Components holds data. And it's certainly nothing to do with that lot. The ECS is the entity component system itself. It's not really part of that. Yeah, it looks like we've got a Dusk API. Wow. I didn't expect that. So it's an API is an applications programming interface. In this case, it's a library programming interface, so it's an LPI, I suppose. Okay. We'll do a Dusk API. Let's create a file. There it is. Dusk API. Let's get rid of that. Pop it in here. It should complain like hell. It does. Super ECS components, yeah, C rectangle. Okay. You want Dusk Physics, AAB, Collisions, AA bounding box. Yeah, you can have that. Alright. That's going to have to be public. Alright, that's okay. Application, Dusk, API, create. Yeah, that's correct. Pretty easy to change things over, isn't it? Alright, does that make sense now? Don't know why it's got space there. That's obvious what it does. Don't need to note that. Does take it out of here, which is good. So that means now I can focus down on this properly. What else is happening up here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Huh. So that cleans that file up. It's now not holding stuff that it shouldn't hold. Systems is fine. Don't really need this like this. Think we'll leave it like that. Okay. Move all, does that belong here? Well, it's a general system, so yes it does. Yeah, I'm alright with that. Okay. Oh, did that wrong. No, our to-dos are okay. So now we have a Dusk API. To create AABBs. Think that'll do it. Yeah, we do have the start of a game engine by accident. But that's what a game is. A game will contain its own game engine. It's when you extract that game engine that you can then develop that separately. Alright, I'll go with it. It's not the best. You now have a working copy of a game. Well, the foundations of a game. Alright, I think I'm okay with that. As far as it goes. Might not exactly be okay with that. But we've certainly cleaned it up a little. Does anybody know of a way of getting past the if statements and this for loop? Damn, that's going to take some thought. This if statement isn't needed. Oh, we can't multiply it by 0, can we? That stops the ball from moving. It has to be -1 or 1. And we've got a bool. We could change that over to a 1 or a -1. If we do that, we don't need the if statement. We can just multiply it by whatever the result is. I'm always looking at ways of getting rid of if statements. Always. But that is definitely not something I can do very easily into Boolean. That we can do. So it would be the result coming back from detect collision. It's interesting. So we're returning a bool. We can return an I32. You see, all we have to do is change that to an I32. Change that to 1. Change that to -1. Our calculations are done in floating point though. Alright. It's now in floating point. So we're getting a 1 or a -1 back. So if there's no collision, it's a 1. We just got rid of an if statement. Yeah. Yeah, we just got rid of an if statement just by changing a value that being returned from detect collision. Isn't that interesting? Still works. Still the same logic. I do want to get rid of that. We need a resolver. Huh. Did I mess up anything else in there? No, I didn't. Wow, that's good of me. Anything else we can do with this? We just simplified that. We've taken an if statement out. That's going to save our CPU branching off into different code, which is unnecessary. People don't realise the amount of unnecessary if statements they have. This is really bothering me. This is really bothering me. The bat and the ball collision should be passing in these 3 values. Can we get these 3 values from anywhere else? Or in a different way? We now have the functionality, but we've got the problem where we've got data being created within a function. Again, this is gathering data. The whole of this, from here to here, is data gathering. It's not a system. The system is check collision, reverse the ball movement, which should actually be resolve the ball movement. It's not if we collide. Yeah, that isn't correct anymore. There's no if statement there. This is a resolver. We've just turned it into a resolver. And it's a bad one. We've got a to-do there. We need to stop the ball being caught inside the bat, which is what's happening at the moment, because we're not resolving, we're just changing the Y direction. We're not replacing the position of the ball to where it should be outside of the box. So I'll put a note to that effect. I.e. reset ball position outside of the box. Bat. So we've got this positional thing going on. We've actually also got it on with the window detection, but it's just not as seeable due to the speeds that we're running the program at. This doesn't belong here. You can see how you can see problems. What we could do with is a create AABB thingy. We've already got that. That's in the API. We could do this all as one thing. That just creates the new bounding box. We can convert. We could do a converter. This is starting to look more like a query system. We could put a converter in here. And then just pass through the two values. The AABBs never get moved. That's allowable. we'd still need the velocities. We'd still have the velocity thing. That line there stopping me. Maybe it's simpler to get the entities and experiment with that. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it as that. So this is gathering data. And I'm going to mark it as such. And as soon as I see gather data in a system, I know we've got a problem. I know it needs to be changed. Okay. Because that's what we're doing. We're now using this as a gathering data. And all these variables aren't needed. You might notice we don't have variables in systems. We sort of gather data. No, we don't gather data, we just do the for loop. And then we're doing all our actions within the for loop. The for loop is the system. Where it isn't here, it's just gathering. Ugh. That is awful. I wonder if it's worth getting the entities. I think for this implementation, no. Alright. It goes beyond the implementation that I'm doing. So it's a to-do. Yeah. If you're doing a full system, these are the kind of things you've got to do. So we could pass in the correct variables to the function, to this function. Yeah, it's looking dodgy. As soon as I start making these to-do notes, I know that this is not right, but it's not something I want to solve at this point in time. Alright, I'm okay with that. How are we doing here? Am I okay with this? We're using floats. We haven't put anything to 0, so yes, I'm okay with that. One of the things you don't want to do with floats, never put them to 0. always have a value in them. So you can do Boolean logic less than, if something is less than 0 or greater than 0. When using floats, never use, if you can help it at all, equal to 0. Because floating points aren't accurate. There might be a point 0.000000001, and then it won't be equal. And you'll have a bug in your program, and you'll never find it. And you'll be sad. Very, very sad. So less than 0 is obvious, and above 0, even if these are 0.000000001 out on the floating points, it'll still be like 1 point, all zeros and 1, or 0.999999999, and this will be out just slightly, a little bit or below, but your if statement will still work. Computers aren't very good at doing mathematics in floating point. The idea of having a floating point equal to 0 is a difficult concept for a computer. It's equal to 0 plus or minus a rounding error, or so. It's what made a lot of programs fail in the past. It's what causes a lot of bugs, actually. Rounding errors. When you're dealing with graphics, you want to program in such a way that any rounding errors that may occur are programmed out of the equation. You can ignore them up to a point, but you can't let them amass. Because then you get things like, oh look, I'm walking along my 3D world and oh, I've just fallen through the floor. How many times has that happened to you in the past? Playing games. Yeah, games have been released like that. Amazing ideas that they really didn't have the concepts. Alright. So we've removed an if statement, have we? Yeah, we removed an if statement. And added more to-dos. And we're only looking at a very, very simple program, remember? Which is why I'm not doing the to-dos. They are not relevant until you decide to use this for something. We're in a sandbox. It doesn't matter. If I decided to make this into production code, all of those to-dos need to be done before this can become production code. So if you do want to use this, be aware of that. Alright. How can I word that? Update to return values. Alright, that one's easy enough. This ball thing. That's the removal of if from ball movement resolution. Yep. Really, that's a big plus. I don't care about the notes. Alright, let's get that up to GitHub. It's not on the main branch, by the way, it's on the sub-branches if you're looking on GitHub thinking, where's the code? Try changing the branch. It's on appdev and libdev branches currently. I think we've got it. So to make this into production code, we'd need to do six to-dos. And then we would be very, very close to what we're after. A query system can go inside ECS. Why am I thinking about a query system? The library that we're using, specs, its query system isn't what I'm after, as we can see. That's the query system there. We could replace, no, we can't replace that because specs depends on it. So we could sidle that off into a query system or start up a query system. This would then allow us to use entities possibly. I can't use a vector, can I? No, unless we mutate that one, then everything's the same. Then you'd have a vector of pointers to tables of pointers. Oh god, this is getting messy. I think we're done. One of the other things I was looking at was putting debug information on the screen. I'll show you how we can do that. There's a problem because I'm using a workspace, and the reason I haven't done it or added it, and I'll show you the problem. It's under E. Resources goes in the workspace. I'm only pushing to GitHub dusk and dawn. So this isn't in Git. This isn't on GitHub. So what you need to do is, for your resources, is get your own. So yeah, that's not good, is it? I'd need to turn this thing into a Git, and I don't want to do that on this version because I've initialized these with their own separate Gits. How would you do it? Out of interest. We've got spare time. Yeah, we've got spare time. You would come to the application and you would need to have a font. So now I'm showing how you can expand upon what I've done. So, alright, don't be tempted to put FPS up on the screen as a debug thing, please. Put your delta time up on the screen. That's more important. Delta time means everything. FPS means nothing. Trust me on that one. We could have a message font, for instance. What would it be? A font, probably. Yeah. SFML graphics font. Probably. We'll try that. Type for loading and manipulating character fonts. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Give ourselves a little bit of working space, because it'll be deleted. So let font equal, we need to get a font from somewhere. So can I do a font? Yeah. Says I'm allowed to load a font from file with an and string. Yeah, okay. Path will be resources. So it's resources. You can see why there's a problem about me putting this on GitHub. Then we'd need sensation.ttf. That's the one I downloaded. Sensation.ttf. I think that's right. .expect. unable. Oh, no font found. That'll do. It does return an error, doesn't it? From file. SF result fbox. Eek, self. Anything dealing with files has a... We got an fbox font. Oh, alright. If you say so. There you go. So we can pop you in there, I guess, as a font. So we've got a font hanging around. What can we do with it? Seems to work. I don't know if I'm doing this right, by the way. No idea. Let's render something. So app gets passed in as mutable. Draw a rectangle. Okay. Function. Draw. Debug. Message. That'll take in an app. That doesn't need to return anything because it's a draw call. So let's pop you in here. So we can draw debug message with our main app. Oh god, can I alter that? No, it doesn't matter. Okay. Main app. I need to alter that back down to app. It's inconsistent. There's a few inconsistencies like this lying around still which need to be gotten rid of. Right, we've got a font. We need to create a string, I guess. Let message equal. So for string from let's have a look. What can we put in here? So delta time, dt. Doesn't matter, it's just a message. We need to add to that delta time. Can I just do a plus? App dot delta time dot toString. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along. Oh no, we can't. Consider borrowing here. Expected. Oh. I don't think doing that is a good idea. Alright. So we've got our message. We need to append, don't we? Can we append? No. Can we add? Good God. What can we do with message? Plus equals? Don't think we can do that. So that's delta time blah 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 blah. Plus equals, try putting in our app here. Delta time, toString. Let's try it here. Expected that. That's a string. Why won't it let me do that? Huh. Using strings is a bit weird, isn't it? I don't want to use format, no. I'm not sure why. That's a string. That's an F32 to a string. And it's giving me this message. Expected and str found string. str, is that a thing here? toString. Oh, God. Why is this so awkward? Get, yeah, into string, yeah. Okay, how do we convert an F32 into a string or an str? Huh. We've done this. Didn't we do well? How do we do that then? Convert F32 to str. Oh, it's coming up with something. Yeah, you're using format, aren't you? toString. Alright. Huh. So my thinking was right, but it doesn't like it. I wonder if his specs has anything for this. What are we using for our font? SFML's got it. Hold on, SFML's got it. Alright. Rust language. Let's have a look at SFML. Draw message. Draw. I don't really want. No. Draw a string. Draw text from F32. How's about that? Using format. Can't we do it just using toString? We worked out the loader font, yeah. Create a value, format the value, okay. Let text equal new. Oh, create a text object, I see. Alright, we need to do that, do we? Fine. He comes up with a string. Format. Where are you getting format from, mate? That's coming out of the standard library, isn't it? Why don't you tell us where format is? Oh, it's found it now. We've got this value. Okay. We need a value. Okay, app. Delta time. That's the value, isn't it? Yeah, that's the value. Alright. So why can't I just do that plus equals value string? I'm just breaking it down. And you can't. Expected and string. Why? Does anybody know why it's expecting a static string? I wonder if I can do it here. Nah. Can you? This is an interesting conundrum that doesn't seem obvious. So what can I put that to? Bits, bytes, strings, that's it. I can only do 2 string. Ah, I didn't like the plus. And add a borrowed string on the right to owned. What? What are you on about? Doesn't look right. None of this looks right. I've never really dealt with strings in Rust before. That's interesting. Append string with another string. How do we add 2 strings together? Format. You are absolutely taking the piss. Oh, we want an ampersand sign in front of it. WTF. Really? Is that what you were really after? Create an owned string from a string reference. Example. 12 plus 1 equals 13. What kind of bloody example is that? What's that got to do with strings? Right. Won't do that. Won't look at it that way. So what it's saying is message plus equals and value string works. Huh. Okay. I'm gonna just wave my hands in the air and say, yeah, okay. Why is that so weird? We'll have 3 decimal places, please. Nah, yeah, 3 decimal places will be alright. For a second. So we need to make an object that we can then put on the screen. How do we do that? Any ideas? SFML draw text. How do we make an object in SFML? We look it up in the manual. Oh, where is it? So, text. So we actually have a text : new. We don't need all this fill, colour and set position stuff, do we? Alright. Let's try text. See how that works in our program. So let text equal text new string font character size. Alright, so string is message. Font is app. Message font. We got an F-box font. Okay, it's accepted it. Character size. Oh, message it doesn't like now. Is not satisfied. Okay. Character size 20. I don't know. Alright, we seem to have got that working. And then we just draw text, don't we? Yeah? And text, of course. Would be and text. So we're going to do an app, window, draw. Yeah, you can see I've never done this before. What are we drawing? And text. It's saying we're okay. God, that's awful. Need to sort that bit out. That's bad. There's a more straightforward way of doing this. Yeah, there's a more straightforward way of doing that. Okay. Clippy, what do you think? I think I've buggered it all up. No, it says I got it right. Okay. It's right. Let's make that bigger. There we go. So, we have now got a DT. So that's our delta time. If our delta time goes above 2, this will stop. But what is our actual delta time? I might break my machine if I try this. Does it matter? Shall we see if we can break our machine? What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell our delta time, hey, you go for it. You knock your socks off. How can we do that? Yeah, I need to fix that. Sometime. Maybe. We could use the window API for this. Because we've got a frame limit going. Not anymore, we haven't. Yeah. It's not taking any time whatsoever. Oh, we've got a little bit of warm up on the graphics card. Okay. So how much do I have to print out to find out exactly what's going on here? How many decimal places do we need to even get a result? Oh, we get a result. 1 to 2 milliseconds. That is so funny. Our game loop is running at 1 to 2 milliseconds. OMG. So there you go, that's debug for you, if you want to know more about your debug. I wouldn't do that, by the way, because that's just altered the speed at which my graphics card was working. Not a bright idea. It's basic, and my CPU was just pummeling through that that loop like forever. You only need 2. 3. So there you go, there's your delta time. That is more useful than the FPS. Why? Because this is telling you how long it's taking your program in milliseconds, in this case 17 milliseconds, to get through a frame or run your loop once. So what that is telling us is it's getting through, where are we? Up. Get rid of you. What it's actually telling us is this loop here is taking 16 to 17 milliseconds, which is what I asked it to do. I said, look, I want a frame limit. I want it to be 60 frames per second, which is 16.333333 recurring. So I'm expecting a result of delta time of around 16 to 17 seconds, because that's what I've asked for. It won't print out a delta time above 0.02. So 20 milliseconds or above, it won't show. It'll just give us a blank screen. But if we go less than 16 or 17 milliseconds, there's a problem. Because this is spinning up your CPU. If it's going over 17 milliseconds, there's a problem. You're taking too long to get through here. That's more important to know than frames per second. Frames per second will never be met. If I ask for 60 frames per second, I'll get 59. If I ask for 61 frames per second, I'll get 59. Because my monitor says, no, you can't have 61, you can only have 60. You'll get the wrong result. If you print out your delta time, you know exactly what's going on. And you can log it or whatever. I wouldn't print it out every frame. I would probably only ask it to print out maybe once a second. But yeah, you can add to your renderer quite easily. And you can split your rendering down, obviously, into submodules. I'm gobsmacked by this. I don't understand this idea of not being able to construct a string. Huh. Oh well, doesn't matter because it's not code I'm keeping. Alright, so yeah, you can build upon what we've done. That, by the way, is the start of your user interface, maybe? Printing out the score. Obviously, you wouldn't have to do all this garbage, but putting a score on screen, a health counter on screen for health, if you want to have health for something. You might want to do that graphically, or you could do it in text. I need to look into more about this language's way of using strings. But that's a me problem, not a language problem. So you can do very easily additions to the code. The code base is now strong enough to be able, you can build on it. You can build on this code quite happily now with small functions doing bits and pieces. Something like this. I mean, yeah, it's draw, it's SFML, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's SFML. So I wouldn't put that into my library. Alright. So we can do things like that. It's not beyond the realms of impossibility, although I need to learn string handling, obviously. Crimes. I wonder if we could just do a format here. Yeah, we can. We can get rid of that. And you just put that in, don't you? And then you just put in DT. Like that. That gets rid of you. This is no longer mutable because we're doing it all in one. And everything's hunky-dory. That's what I expected. Why have I got to do for here? Thank you. Had a little red squiggle left over. Visual Studio Code, keep up. There we go. That's cleaner. Yeah, don't worry. You should go back to your code and play with it and get it cleaner. Yeah, I know. So we can actually draw things in like 3 lines of code. That's pretty good. Becomes very, very simple. Should check it works. Yeah, it works. So we can easily add text in to our rendering process. I don't, because of that flickering, I would say you might not want to be rendering text every single frame. You can smooth that out, obviously. You can position the text any way you want. There's a load of text functions there. You can colour it, position it, probably rotate it. God knows what you can do with it. You could also make it into a component in the ECS system and pull it out of there. I'm not sure I would. All depends on the kind of text messages I want to put on screen, I guess. So there's many different ways you can handle things. But be warned about, especially debug, what kind of things you... I like that one way it went roundabout. That's clever. Be very careful about your debug messaging. Because what you're going to do is just get a load of lies back from the system. So what you debug matters. But that's an interesting debug message. I mean, that's everybody wants to put their FPS on screen. No, thank you. Put your delta time on screen. Get it right. Get the right metric that tells you what is really happening. And that's it. I think I've shown that you can build on this easily. I also don't think I want to keep all of that stuff that I've just done. I don't want that to go up on GitHub because you don't have access to this. Do you? Yeah. You don't have access to this on GitHub because that's in my workspace. And my workspace is not being saved to GitHub. So that gives you an idea. You put your resources and all of your data and stuff in your workspace. Yeah. So I have to set up my projects differently if I want to share them in full. I think Cargo could do that for me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use Git, aren't I, to initialize things differently. Ugh. I'm not sure how you would manually set it all up. Anyway, that's a me problem. So yeah, put in your resource any kind of true type font. You might find some on the system. I downloaded sensation.ttf from the GitHub for what was it, SFML? Yeah. I'll show you. Yeah, we can do it from here. So if you go to SFML, you go to the repository. No, it won't be in source. It'll be in examples. There you go, resources. All I did was look in these resources, see that there's a Sensation TTF, clicked on it, and there's a button here, download raw file. I clicked on that, and there we go. I got Sensation TTF in my downloads folder. Moved it over to a resource folder within the project workspace, and all of a sudden I had access to it. It's part of the crate, so I mean there's a load of PNGs, there's even some orchestral OGs. That's sound files. A storm vert. A wave vert. A clock. There's tons of little bits and pieces in here. There's a canary wave. Oh, how cute. So you could download these kind of things and play around with them if you wish. No hassle there. But there we go, physics collision complete. Game, basic, foundation, complete. What would I do next? Dunno. New project maybe. We can get up to anything we want now, can't we? But yeah, that's it. Everything's up on GitHub. It's in 2 separate repositories instead of 1. So we've got Dusk is your library, which contains the... We'll go to the application first. So the application, switch over to the app dev, and all that source code is now in here. All of it. That also includes the dependencies. Do be careful when using SFML. So we do have our dependencies in. We have the path to Dusk, obviously, because we've got that next door in the same file system or workspace. SFML specs and specs derive. I don't think I need specs derive. I can just activate a feature here, can't I? Specs derive is within specs. So there's a bit an explanation on how I did my workspace and the package for Dawn, adding the path. Dusk. Dusk is here. Again, don't use the master, it's got nothing in it. Use the libdev and you will see that we have our physics here. So that's that lovely little detect collision that I did. To be improved on. Interesting ideas I've put in here. I'm also not certain about all of this code, but you know, it's starting code. So it is there for you if you want it. Go play with it. Do things with it. Make a game. I mean, we've made a game. You hit a ball with a bat. That's the game. There's no score. There's not much fun in it, but it's a game. So we have completed our first game. Put a brush on, that helps. Done it. I'm quite chuffed at that. In the meantime, have a good weekend. Go play with some code. If you want to use my code, go ahead and play with it. The code base is okay. It's not brilliant. It's got the to-do notes in there if you want to expand on it. Everything is there that you're going to need to create any kind of 2D game that you want, even a basic collision system, which is a bit grotty, but it's okay. It works. Take care. Go have some fun. Ooh. I did upset my GPU doing that little experiment. Sorry, GPU. My bad. Take care, peeps.